Yo, what's going on YouTube, and welcome back to Goal Line Hockey. It's your boy Kevin Forte, and today we are taking a look at the Pittsburgh Penguins as they added a little bit of jam to their lineup here over the last couple of days. This team has been heavily criticized for their lack of help on the blue line, really for the last 2 or 3 years now. And specifically this season, their lack of production and efficiency on the third line. They did address some of those issues. Ron Hextall went out, made a couple of moves, didn't give up the farm. He did make some moves, but did he do enough to keep the playoff streak alive for the Pittsburgh Penguins? We're going to go over that today. So the playoff streak, really the storyline around that is this team has not missed the playoffs since Sidney Crosby's rookie season in the National Hockey League. It's been a long time since the Penguins have missed the postseason, but they are on the verge. It's been a very kind of up and down couple of weeks here. The Penguins are now on a 3 or 4 game winning streak here going into the deadline, so they've gained a little bit of confidence. They've added a couple of guys, but is it enough? Now you look at their lineup. 3 of their additions to the lineup here over the last couple of days. Dmitry Kulikov comes in from Anaheim. Nick Bonino comes in from the San Jose Sharks. Welcome back, Nick Bonino. And Mikael Granlund comes in from the Nashville Predators. And that's probably their biggest addition here at the deadline. So my thoughts overall, Kulikov is a good third, kind of a scratch pad depth defenseman. Really not that much better than anybody they already have. And that's why I think Chychrun would have been a real helper for this blue line. But the fact that they weren't really getting the offers that they wanted, maybe there would have been more involved, right? Could Owen Pickering have been involved, or one of their good younger players like Drew O'Connor? If any of those guys were in the package, maybe that's why they said no. But I got to think that they could have gotten the same price for Jakob Chychrun, right? And I think that's where a lot of fans are upset that, who needs the first round picks this year? We need better players, right? So I think that was definitely a level of concern for the Penguins. Also looking at the Bonino trade, again, how much does Bonino really help out this team? Is he a good fourth line center to come in and maybe take over Drew O'Connor? He got sent down the other day. Maybe that's what that deal is all about. And Mikael Granlund, they have him listed online as a third line winger with Jeff Carter and Danton Heinen. So we'll see what happens there. I think he could also play center there as well, but he definitely helps out that third line. I think that's a great addition for this team. It didn't cost them the farm, didn't cost them an arm and a leg, a second-round pick. I think that's a fair value for Granlund at this point. They get some term with Granlund, which is also a really nice thing. He's not a pure rental, which I think, for the most part, I have to think that the Penguins are pretty happy about. And I would say he's definitely an upgrade over Kasperi Kapanen, who is basically in that same spot. They get his contract ends in 2025, so they get this year and 2 more full seasons after this season with Mikael Granlund. I would say that's a win for the Pittsburgh Penguins. With that said, though, did they do enough? And I think that realistically, the only real addition that would have really helped this blue line was if they went out and added a Filip Hronek or Jakob Chychrun. Those were the 2 guys that got traded in my book that really could have helped this team. And I hate to say it, the only way I think they could have brought Filip Hronek in was moving a contract. And maybe that would have meant moving on from a Jeff Carter or a Jeff Petrie to replace him in that spot. Because ideally, if it's not Letang in that top spot, ideally you would have looked for another top 4 defenseman on that right side, or definitely a defenseman on the left side. And maybe that's part of the reason they didn't go for Hronek. He is listed as a right shot defenseman. That's why Patrick Allvin brought him to Vancouver. He's a right shot defenseman. So realistically, I think they're okay with Petrie and Letang in that top 4. The only really other guy is Jakob Chychrun, who is a left shot defenseman, which the Penguins desperately need. Pettersson, Dumoulin, Pierre-Olivier Joseph, and now they added Kulikov, but Kulikov is just not a level of defenseman that's even going to break this team's top 6 depth chart on the blue line. He's not even their third best pairing guy on the left side. So, when I look at it in that sense, was it really even worth adding Kulikov, right? He's some depth, but he doesn't really help them out all that much. They didn't give up too much for him, but again, it seems like a missed opportunity there. And that's kind of where you have to do the Filip Hronek trade if you're Vancouver, right? I don't think that the Red Wings were really shopping Hronek. It was Patrick Allvin really looking at what Filip Hronek, looking at what the Red Wings were doing, seeing they were selling off, and kind of going out and making the move. So I'm kind of surprised that Pittsburgh couldn't find a defenseman that could have worked out for them, right? And that's kind of where I'm like, they could have found somebody out there, right? And they weren't able to do that. So with that said, overall, I think the biggest win for the Penguins, and I talked about this in my last video about the Winnipeg Jets, and make sure to watch that video. I kind of talked about sometimes the best moves you make at the deadline are the moves that don't get made. We say the same thing in free agency. Some of the best signings you make are the ones that you actually don't sign and the ones you don't make. And I think that's something that happened here. Now, during my live stream, I talked about Pittsburgh was very interested in JT Miller. That was the report. Patrick Allvin really didn't, I watched his press conference, he really didn't say much in terms of what really happened there, what had transpired. He said nothing really came of it. There was no offer given, but again, there was a lot of talk yesterday or the other morning about that on trade deadline day, that Pittsburgh was really looking at JT Miller. And I think a lot of people were kind of worried about that because of how big his contract is, and considering the Penguins situation long term, they do have the ability to do that, but is that really a good move for them right now? They could have found a way if they found a third party involved. Their cap hit was $1.9 million at the time during the trade deadline, and JT Miller's money, with 25% salary retained by another team and 25% retained by Pittsburgh, they could have found a way to get that deal done. But I think it came down to Pittsburgh wasn't willing to give up a center, which I would have to assume would have been somebody like a Jeff Carter or a Rickard Rakell. And if it's Rickard Rakell, then, and he's not even listed as a center, I think that maybe Ryan Poehling, that's the only guy really here. It was either Jeff Carter or Ryan Poehling that would have had to go in the deal. So, again, maybe that's why Pittsburgh wasn't willing to make the move. But nonetheless, the deal never transpired, and I honestly think for the Penguins, that's a win. If that was the big move that Hextall was looking to make here for multiple first-round picks and stuff like that, that would have anchored and sunk this team's salary cap freedom for the next 8 years. I think it's a huge win for them, not a missed opportunity, not getting JT Miller. And maybe that's something we'll talk about more in the summer, the trades that could have been. There was also a rumor about JVR going to Detroit, and that never transpired. And I think there's a lot of interesting things that what could have been. And JT Miller not going to the Penguins, I think for the most part, of these moves that were made, I like Granlund there. I think he's a good fit. But not getting JT Miller might be the biggest win for the Pittsburgh Penguins at the deadline. And hey, here's the good news for the Penguins fans. They kept their first-round pick this year. They kept their first-round pick next year. They still have their second-round pick next year. They have a third-round pick in this year and next year's draft. And they've also kept their young guys, right? They've kept Owen Pickering. They've kept Samuel Poulin, Philip Hallander, Drew O'Connor. Who's the other guy? Ty Smith, right? They've been able to keep all of those younger players. I think that's a huge win for the Penguins. And they were still able to add here at the deadline. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Are you disappointed with the Penguins addition? Should they have done more? Should they have done less? Are you happy they didn't trade any of the younger guys? Let me know your guys' thoughts down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys again next time.